The head of the British Army has warned the citizens of the United Kingdom to prepare for a war on the scale of the major conflicts of the 20th century. Speaking at the International Armoured Vehicles exhibition in London, General Sir Park Sanders said the Russian invasion of Ukraine was a sign of things to come. He warned that lessons from previous wars should be learned before it's too late. Our predecessors failed to recognize the magnitude of the so-called July crisis of 1914 and stumbled into the most terrible of all wars, he said. We cannot afford to make the same mistake today. Ukraine is really important. General Sanders urged that the potential scale of the conflict in the coming years should not be underestimated. This war is not just about the black soil of Donbass or the re-establishment of a Russian empire, but about the political, psychological and symbolic defeat of our system and our way of life. How we as a pre-war generation respond to this will reverberate through history. Ukrainian bravery is buying us time for now. The general also called for nearly doubling the size of the British Army. The British military is generally planning to overcome a long-term recruitment crisis that has seen the number of soldiers shrink, even as British forces participate in various overseas deployments. However, he also said that while traditional mobilization was important, ordinary British citizens also needed to be prepared for it, if not for full conscription, then at least for a level of civilian mobilization not seen in Western Europe since 1945. Russia is concerned with the political, psychological and symbolic defeat of our system and our way of life. I said that's how we react to this as a pre-war generation will show this. And in response to his speech, the government emphasized that full military conscription was not up for debate. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's spokesman Max Blaine said the government had no intention of introducing conscription. The British military has a proud tradition of being a volunteer force. There are no plans to change that, he said. Sanders' words follow months of ominous warnings from other key NATO members, particularly in mainland Europe. The German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius recently called for radical war preparations that would represent a dramatic realignment of the German military after nearly 8 decades of multilateral defense policy. Documents recently leaked to some German newspapers show that Berlin is drawing up contingency plans for a massive Russian attack on Western Europe, particularly the Baltic states. The plan, called a practice scenario, assumes that Russia will wage a campaign of hybrid warfare against Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania in July this year, using false claims of discrimination against Russian speakers as a pretext for deploying troops on its western borders used in bordering to EU countries and Belarus. According to the predictions of this scenario, the NATO alliance itself would send 300,000 soldiers to Eastern Europe, but only at the beginning of 2025. The war in Ukraine is currently in something of a stalemate. With the front line relatively immobile and troops hunkered down in icy conditions, attacks with long-range missiles and drones have come to the fore, with more attacks occurring on Russian territory. Kiev and its allies are concerned that the supply of foreign weapons and ammunition to the Ukrainian military has stalled as Republicans in the US Congress block funding needed by the Pentagon. Against the backdrop of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, NATO has also launched its largest military exercise in decades. A US warship made its way across the Atlantic last week, and with the Steadfast Defender exercise, the alliance wants to demonstrate its ability to strengthen the Euro-Atlantic region through the transatlantic deployment of forces from North America. That was said by the Commander-in-Chief of NATO troops in Europe, that's US General Christopher Cavoli. With the maneuver, NATO is demonstrating its unity, strength, and determination to protect each other, our values, and the international order, as Cavoli emphasized. According to NATO information, a Russian attack on the alliance territory will be rehearsed as an emergency with around 90,000 soldiers. The major maneuver will therefore last until the end of May. It consists of several smaller individual exercises, and it is intended to extend from North America to NATO's eastern flank near the Russian border. All 31 alliance countries and candidate country Sweden are taking part in the 4-month exercise. According to the information, 50 naval ships, 80 aircraft, and over 1,100 combat vehicles will take part. And according to the chairman of the NATO Military Committee, that's Rob Bauer, the military alliance is using the exercise to prepare for a conflict with Russia and terrorist groups. In view of a possible threat from Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, NATO has deployed thousands of soldiers to its eastern flank and drawn up the most extensive plans since the end of the Soviet Union to protect alliance members from a Russian attack in an emergency. In June, NATO held the large-scale Air Force exercise Air Defender over German airspace. It was the largest relocation exercise of air forces since NATO was founded almost 75 years ago. 250 aircraft and around 10,000 soldiers from 25 countries took part. And the USA also wants to station nuclear weapons in Great Britain again. The British newspaper The Telegraph reported this on Friday evening, citing Pentagon documents. The warheads are to be stored at the Royal Air Force Lakenheath facility in Suffolk. According to the report, they are said to be 3 times more powerful than the atomic bomb that the United States dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. In 2008, the US withdrew its nuclear bombs from Lakenheath after the threat from Russia appeared less severe. The planned deployment again is probably related to reports that the British Army is not ready for a military confrontation with Russia. London has so far kept a low profile on this matter, and a spokesman for the British Ministry of Defence is quoted in this report as saying, "It remains a long-standing tradition of the United Kingdom and NATO not to confirm or deny the presence of nuclear weapons at any given location." In order to deter Russia, the Commander-in-Chief of the British Army, General Sir Patrick Sanders, called for the introduction of a compulsory military service in Great Britain, as I said in the beginning of the video. And we are definitely living in different times than before. I was for quite some time a member of our military after the end of the Cold War, and we had a lot of stuff to do still to work with the remains of that time. But when we finally had peace and the Berlin Wall fell down and the Iron Curtain fell down, none of us expected that we would be in this position in this millennium again. If you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.